So today I'm going to be talking about my first impressions of Call of Duty Black Ops 6. For context, I think I have a unique perspective on this. I used to play Call of Duty every single year and I would grind it nonstop, especially when I was younger. But I actually haven't played Call of Duty since Modern Warfare 2019. So it's been quite a few years since I played a Call of Duty. But after playing and seeing some of the footage for the Black Ops 6 beta, I was like, oh my God, I got to try this out. Right off the bat, I got the vibes that some old school Call of Duty features were coming back, or at least it would feel a little bit more old school than past Call of Duties have. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to give it a shot. And I'll tell you right now, just playing the multiplayer for a few days, I really have been enjoying it. There are certainly some cons, and I'll get into that in a second, but I'll get into the pros first, just so we can start on a good note. First off, the Omni movement. I know that it isn't a large leap for movement for Call of Duty just because the last few games have been standard boots on the ground movement. The Omni movement gives this game a lot more variety in terms of how you can traverse the map, how you can one up your enemy, especially when you're having chaotic gunfights. I cannot tell you how many times I've already had people backwards dolphin dive and kill me. It's pretty hilarious, but I do think that the Omni movement has been way smoother than I think most people thought. I figured there would be bugs with it, there would be awkwardness, but it took me less than one game to get used to the movement. So I am pleasantly surprised with how smooth it is. With that being said, I'll move on to the guns. The guns feel pretty smooth. There aren't a whole lot of weapons that I feel like are overpowered. There's some SMGs and some assault rifles that stand out for sure, like the C9, the very first SMG you get. Also the Jackal, which if you bought the Vault Edition, you had that automatically unlocked right off the bat. But for the most part, it seems like pretty much any gun you could pick up and it's fine. You might need to get some attachments, of course, but for the most part, I don't feel like there's a single gun that underperforms so bad that it's unusable. So props for the gun balancing right off the bat. I'm sure there will be buffs and nerfs, but I think for a game that just released, knowing Call of Duty's history, I think the guns are relatively balanced. But again, I'm sure there will be buffs and nerfs as the weeks carry on. Another thing that I want to talk about is just the vibrance of the game. I know that there are a lot of issues with the maps, and we'll get into that second, but just overall, I think the map variety in terms of scenes is pretty good. I love how 1 minute I could be playing in a Giga Mansion, and then the next I could be on a military base on an island. Like I love the variety of the different scenes that we can be in. But that does bring me into the cons, and I think every single person that has played this game is probably experiencing this in some way. The maps are a problem. I will admit that there are a couple of good maps. I think Skyline is easily the strongest map, and I'll get into that in a second. I also think that Babylon, Subsonic, Vault, Protocol, maybe Derelict, depending on the game mode. I think those are good maps. I think if we're talking about maps that are the most balanced, Skyline is absolutely the most balanced map. I think below Skyline, you're probably looking at Vault and Protocol. And when I'm talking about a balanced map, I'm talking about a map that I'm not constantly getting spawn killed on, and a map that can play well on multiple game modes. I feel like those are the only few maps that really stand out, but that doesn't mean that they're great maps. I think just personally, I'm having the best experience with Skyline. That map just, I don't know what it is, maybe it's just me, but the flow of that map is probably the best in the entire game, and it doesn't really matter what game mode I'm playing. I've played it on Search, Domination, Hardpoint, TDM, Headquarters, you name it. I've played it on that map. I've never had a bad experience on that map in terms of the flow of the mode. I don't know what developer or developers were designing these maps, but honestly, I think they need to get their act together because otherwise these maps are not great. I'll start with Vorkuta. Pretty much the only game mode that I think plays well on Vorkuta is Search and Destroy. Otherwise, I try to avoid that map like the plague. Babylon is a good map, but it's not a map that I would say flows well with objective game mode just because of how chaotic it is. It's not your traditional 3 lane map. It's very much a mosh pit style map. Don't get me wrong, it's fun, but it doesn't play well if you're just trying to play an objective. Subsonic, same idea. It's fun, but I don't think it plays very well for objective game modes. It's just a fun, nice, small mosh pit style map. Vault. Vault is interesting because I can see that it's going to be a competitive map, and don't get me wrong, it looks beautiful, and for the most part, it plays good. But I don't know about you all, but I'm experiencing an issue where it seems like every time I play Vault, it's like painfully slow. Outside of playing Search and Destroy, I mean, I'm probably going to be using a free for all video that I recorded just for this, where I was just running around the map for the most of the game. And I swear to God, I was spending more time just looking for people than actually being in gunfights. And it's weird because Vault doesn't seem like it's that big of a map, but for some reason, it just doesn't flow very well. I mean, I've played it on Domination, I've played it on Headquarters, and just something about the flow does not work. It seems slower paced than it should be. Um, it's a solid map for playing in objective mode, I think. I'm sure it'll be in the COD League this year, but other than that, I don't know what is wrong with this map, but the flow needs to I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the players, but I have not had great experience with pacing on this map. Scud, overall decent map. I mean, it's decent on some game modes, but I think the open part of it is kind of obnoxious at times. But that's just me. Rewind is okay. Again, for an objective game mode, it's okay. But it's also one of those maps that's just kind of like, you know. Payback's pretty good. Close quarters map. Most of the time, people are right up in your face. I think this is one of the more solid maps. And it seems that the community mainly thinks that as well. Red card. I don't know who in their right mind thought this was going to be a good map, but I believe, my opinion, outside of Search and Destroy, I don't know what people were thinking. This map is not for 6v6, and God forbid that somebody or some people leave the game early and make it even a smaller set of players. But like outside of Search, it just doesn't work. I mean, yeah, there's 3 lanes in theory, but each lane has like several different layers of, vertical gameplay. There are some points that are 3 different levels. The map itself is pretty wide as well. And I feel like most of the time I'm just running around trying to find people. I think if Black Ops 6 had Ground War, this would have been a great map for Ground War. But 6v6 on anything but Search and Destroy, it just is so boring. At Lowtown, I see what they were doing with it, but there's too much water. I don't know. I thought it was neat for the first couple of games, but the water's obnoxious. I feel like I'm playing leapfrog on the boats on that map, just trying to get around the map, and the water gameplay is pretty much pointless. I mean, you can only hip fire, and you're asking for death if you go into the water and you meet somebody. Overall, I just don't think it's a great map. And then the last one, Derelict. I think this map is decent. Again, just like most of them, but it's got this weird flow issue. It doesn't have the same flow issue as Vault, where it just seems like the pacing is really slow. But there are so many different directions and places that people can pop out of that it doesn't really fit the 3 lane formula of a Call of Duty game. And it's kind of like Babylon in a way. I mean, Babylon's, I think, more so on this, but it just seems a little chaotic in terms of where people are spawning, where people are going. And again, for an objective game mode, I think it gets saved a little bit. But if it's a kill-based game mode like TDM or Kill Confirmed, there's going to be people coming from all directions pretty much on this map. At least that's my experience. Let me know if you've been experiencing these maps differently, because I'm purely just going off of my opinion. But a couple of other weird things. Skill-based matchmaking. I don't know what the skill-based matchmaking is going off of, because I've been grinding out the gold camos. I've got 8 or 9 weapons gold right now, and I was trying to get the hard ones done, the snipers, the rocket launchers, and my KD and win-loss suffered because of that. I think I'm usually a good player. I usually get somewhere between a 2 to 3 KD on average a game, and most of my games I win. But when I was doing these challenges, my KD and win-loss suffered, and yet I was still getting in lobbies with just a pack of sweats. And it seemed like some of my buddies experienced this as well. It seemed like whenever we did good one single time, like we could do poorly for 5 games straight, doing camo challenges or whatever it was. And then we would pop off one single match because we were actually trying. And then for the next hour, we were playing against people who I swear to God, if you told me they were trying to win $1 million at a COG League event, I would believe you because that's how they were playing. I don't know how the skill-based matchmaking functions exactly, but however it functions, it is making this game kind of inconsistent in terms of level of difficulty that players are faced up against. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I like playing against difficult players. I like playing against teams that actually put up a fight. One other issue that I'm experiencing, and again, let me know if you are experiencing this as well. My buddies and I have been having this issue where we're going for our headshot challenges for the camos, and it seems like headshots do diddly squat in this game. We've had experiences where we get 2-3 headshot hit markers and the person still isn't dead, which is ridiculous. One of the things that we're thinking is there's an attachment. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it's a barrel attachment that gives you a headshot multiplier. And I think that's ridiculous. We're talking about headshots here. Headshots are already more difficult to hit than a body shot. I feel like hitting someone in the head in and of itself is the multiplier. So I think it's a little ridiculous that in a Call of Duty game, you're taking away the incentive of shooting for the head when it isn't actually killing enemies very fast at all. Again, like we're getting 2, maybe 3 hit markers on the head. I don't care what gun you're using at what distance. If you get 2 to 3 hit markers on the head, that should be a kill. But that's just me, and a few of my buddies. So if you're experiencing anything like that, let me know down in the comments. Overall, I do think that this is a solid game, especially coming back to a Call of Duty several years after the last one I played. And again, I think movement solid. For the most part, the maps are good for objective game modes, except for Red Card and Vorkuta, but that's just me. But yeah, I think the weakest point that I think a lot of people are noticing is the maps. I'm hoping that with DLC maps, I know Nuketown is coming out, WMB, I think it's Yemen as well. I know those are coming out soon, so hopefully DLC maps will kind of revive the map quality. If that happens, then I think this is probably the best Call of Duty we've had in quite a few years, just from what I can gather. Recap, I think the map quality is mid at best. It really does depend on the map. There's not a lot of strong maps that are good on most modes, which is unfortunate. So hopefully DLC maps will kind of revitalize that. Skill-based matchmaking seems to be really wonky right now, hoping that gets fixed soon. Movement, solid. Guns, solid. There's that headshot issue that I feel like is not just a me issue. I'm pretty sure that's being experienced by a lot of people. So yeah, let me know what you all think about Black Ops 6 and how you're enjoying it, what you're noticing is good, what you're noticing is bad. I'm not a campaign player and I'm not a zombies player. I only stick to multiplayer. So if you have any insight into those game modes, let me know down in the comments. So again, guys, let me know what you think about this game in the comments and I'll see you later.